told us three right here, hey, Georgia scored 16 points against us on Friday, not only would Tech probably win, they might win by like 2 touchdowns.
We're going to grade Brent Key's third year as a head coach.
You were the highest ranked team in the country, not in the SEC or the Big Ten, and now you missed both the playoff and the ACC championship.
Let's face it, Georgia Tech lost 12,000 season ticket holders under the previous regime. He got most of that back.
At all three levels, you've probably got the right institutional alignment at Georgia Tech for the first time since what? Homer Ice in like the mid-90s?
I think everybody, except for maybe some trolls online, we're all in alignment here that it's time to see an extension happen. And another person that Georgia Tech fans are going to want to see locked up as we get through this postseason is Buster Faulkner.
I think also he recruited Aaron Philo. That was his handpicked quarterback to run his offense.
You saw in the NC State game last year and the Miami game last year, I mean, as a true freshman, he carried the team to some wins.
Speaking of matchups that fans aren't hoping for, a tweet that went out today had Georgia Tech playing Minnesota in the Pinstripe Bowl. Welcome back to Jolly Good Fellows, episode 6, our first episode of the postseason after Georgia Tech's 16-9 defeat against UGA. As you can see on our screen here, Patrick and myself are joined by Matt Thompson, the legend. You all know him on Twitter. Matt, it's a pleasure to have you, man. How are you doing on this fine evening?
I'm doing great, guys. It's good to be with you. We've known each other a long time through Twitter, and we know each other well enough to be in the DMs at this point talking sports, so it's great to be with you guys tonight.
Hey, man, Patrick, I know we've had a couple days instead of just one day as usual to kind of recoup our thoughts. How are you doing, brother?
It's tough. Kind of thought about it for a couple days, and you really would think if you told us three right here, hey, Georgia scored 16 points against us on Friday.
Absolutely.
You'd say, all right, not only would Tech probably win, they might win by like 2 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, they didn't. They physically went toe for toe with them. They didn't make enough plays. Some bad calls that can't blame it on that. But we're here. We're 9-3. We have a chance to have 10 wins, which is a very big deal, I think. And so we have that opportunity, and you really have to do that. We don't need an 0-6 repeat where you just go on a 3-game losing streak to end the season. So I think you get 10 wins, big deal. And then this was a tough season that what could have been, but Tech is clearly making strides.
Yeah, we're going to get into all that stuff and more on this episode, guys. We'll obviously talk a lot about the UGA game. Don't want to spend too much time on that one just so, the fans don't come and call us obsessed or anything like that. God forbid we talk about the football game that just happened. We'll also talk about Brent Key's third season as the head man at Georgia Tech. We're going to talk about coordinators. We're going to give some grades, obviously get into some bowl projections. And then if we feel like it, we might touch on Damon Stoudemire and the Georgia Tech basketball team towards the back end as well. Definitely can't lead off the podcast on such a negative note like that. But, yeah, as Patrick said, 16-9, it seemed a lot of missed opportunities for Georgia Tech in that football game. If you said 16 going into it, Tech fans are probably licking their chops. But ultimately, not the way that it goes. A defensive game, just as we all expected going into the week. It was a sight for sore eyes. I mean, I was sitting there with my fiance who doesn't watch too much football, and she was like, this is boring. It's like, is anything going to happen? Like, this is so slow. Not the clock. Felt like the game flew by. But obviously, just the things happening on the field wasn't too exciting for your typical football fan. But, 7-point difference between Georgia Tech and Georgia. 1 touchdown was all it took. A far cry from the 15.5 that Vegas thought and that many other talking heads thought would be the case leading up into the game. We'll start with you, Matt. How overall thoughts on the football game, and how are you feeling now?
Patrick mentioned the 2006 season, the close of that season, and that's kind of what I thought of during the game. It's one of those Georgia Tech fan conundrum games where sometimes it's season to season, sometimes it's game to game. The offense is up, the defense is down, and then you flip it, defense up, offense down. It reminded me of a Chan Gailey and John Snuda game, where the offense just couldn't get anything going. You can't hit any big plays. I mean, you're relying on the 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, and 1 tackle for loss kills it. Georgia's got a good aggressive defense. They were dominating the offensive line for much of the day. Haynes King maybe tried to do a little too much at times, missed a couple of reads, and suddenly you're punting. It was hard to sustain things. I was thinking, as rough as the Georgia Tech defense has been for really, let's call it what it is, a decade and a half. You had the 21-6 game at Virginia Tech last year, the 16-9 game the other day. Like statistically, two of Tech's best defensive performances in years, and you go 0-2. It's just frustrating. I do want to compliment Brent Key. I think it speaks highly of him and how he's beginning to flip the script quickly. He's 4 for 4 scoring first against Georgia, and it hasn't necessarily mattered, but it's a statement that you can make. You got to take some silver linings, I guess, in something like this. And the one thing I would say, the visual from the game last year, you had Brent Key looking stone faced at the scoreboard from what seemed like an hour, right? I just thought all year I've been thinking, what's he going to dial up for this game? What's Buster? What wrinkles are they going to have, right? And it just kind of seemed they played the usual hits. I mean, now a lot of that's credit to Georgia. You're getting pressure. You're not having a lot of time to do much, so you're kind of sticking with your bread and butter. But I was thinking, we're going to see, like, Buster loves the lateral passing game, right? I'm thinking, well, maybe there's a double pass coming off of that. If you saw the Cal versus UNLV bowl game last year, Marshall Nichols had one of the best fake punts I've ever seen. I thought this is the game right here. You're going to see something like that. And we just didn't see it. So I expect a little more aggressiveness, but I guess you kind of rely on what you do best when you're playing a really good defense. So, I think the last thing I would say, it's Groundhog Day in terms of breaks, right, in this rivalry. You get the Keelan Rutledge 15-yard penalty. You take 3rd and 2 in an obvious 4-down territory into 3rd and 17 near midfield. You have to punt.
Yeah, did anybody ever see what the replay was on that? Sorry to interrupt. I've not seen. I've looked for it.
And Brent Key said in his post game, he looked up at the screen to try to find it and didn't see it. So, you had the Gunnar Stockton run on a 3rd and 5. I think that he got a really good spot. It was 4th and inches. I think it could have been 4th and a full yard, maybe a yard and a half. Then you had they went for it quickly, and probably not a great challenge on Brent's part because you can kind of tell something like that's not going to get overturned. But I've never seen a replay crew rush through something. They couldn't be bothered to really even look at it. And when the guy fell, he kind of pulled the ball back into his chest, which might have been short of the 35. It came after a touchback, so all he had to do was touch the 35. But, man, they couldn't rush through that fast enough. So it's just, in this series of the break, you just don't ever get enough breaks. You're one play short, one break short, and it happened again this season, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. No, this was some really interesting points there. The officiating, obviously a hot topic after last year's game in Athens. And, I was hoping for a cleaner outcome in this game. And personally, I think it was pretty fairly officiated. Both teams ended the game with 5 penalties. And I think Georgia Tech might have ended up getting sort of a makeup call for the Keelan Rutledge, maybe unsportsmanlike, unnecessary roughness, whatever you want to call it. Again, no one really saw it, so really not sure what to make of it. But got a pretty ticky-tack roughing the passer for Haynes King there shortly after. So ended up getting, another opportunity from that. But, yeah, overall felt pretty fairly officiated. Patrick, how you feeling, man?
Yeah, I feel like the game was, last year I think that you could look to some calls that were just atrociously bad, like the pass interference on, like, Omar Daniels on 4th and goal when it was 20-6. The Haynes King targeting call, maybe or maybe not. But this year it was pretty fairly officiated. I think that at the end of the day, Matt said it, like, Georgia Tech does not get breaks against Georgia, and they always are, like, one play short. I get that some of the games where they kick our ass, whatever, but the close games that we lose that are just like, Georgia Tech is just one big break away. Like, you think about, like, so many years, like, you think of 2007, I was thinking about, like, you get Morgan Burnett running back for a touchdown, Moshawn Reno punches it through the end zone. Right. You have 1st and 10, like, and Haynes King throws a terrible ball into double coverage. It gets picked off. This year against Georgia, Tech just does not ever come up with the play, and Georgia seems to always do it against us, and it is what it is right now. It's a tough loss. Georgia's a really good team, and I think Tech is a really good team. But right now you're 9-3, which everybody I think that's a great season and far cry from what we were. But the most frustrating part for Tech is this could have been a very special season, and it seems like you had so many, like, you're so close to having a season where you could be in the playoff, and I don't know how many opportunities you're going to have like this again. It's the schedule lined up so perfectly for us this year, and we lost some games to teams that I think we're better than. And again, it's hard to get there. I don't know when it's going to happen again. It's been 10 years since we got to the ACC championship. So I don't know. I've been frustrated the last couple of days. I think there's a lot of strides. There's a lot of positives going on with the program. Everybody's happy. Like, Brent's doing a good job, and there's a lot of things to build on. But at the end of the day, there's some opportunities I don't know when you get back.
Sure. Yeah, it's nice to have those positive things to take away for sure. I mean, it definitely, again, a few short years ago, it seems like we're getting ran out of our own stadium. So it's nice to have some, call it what you want. It's not a moral victory. It's just, hey, this is how the game played out. The gap is a lot smaller than it used to be. And, these are the talking points that we come away from the game. It seems like we're eating the frog kind of to start out and talking about how bad the offense was. Let's talk about Haynes King a little bit. 19 to 27. 181 yards and 1 interception. Now, from my perspective, it didn't seem like he really needed to throw the ball deep to Dean Patterson there. I think it was Brett Seidler that I saw down the right sideline, pretty wide open. What were y'all's thoughts on that throw and just Haynes King's decision on that play and just his game overall?
Matt, you go first.
King's such a warrior. He's been that way for 3 years, and I think the whole team just – the pressure of November rising as the defense began to struggle pretty much all month. They had so much pressure to, as Paul Johnson would say, can't miss your turn. And I think King, being a leader, wanting to lead the team to win, just probably tried to fit that throw in. Like you said, Siler probably was open. And it was just a great individual play by the defensive back to get up and catch the ball too. So
Absolutely.
That's just one of those plays. I mean, I don't think King – the reads, I think, probably was a bigger deal in terms of his struggles. But, he's, for a year and a half, really, he barely threw any interceptions. I think probably 2 interceptions, right? And so until the Pittsburgh game. So he's done so many things well. It's hard to pick on that. But the margin for error is just so slim the last couple of weeks. And those mistakes got magnified.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's really, you hate to ever blame Haynes King. I know he hasn't played his best games the last 2 games, but I mean, he's elevated this program so well, and he's played like a warrior. And that he put a lot of pressure on himself for this game. So seeing that, that wasn't a great decision. At the end of the day, though, I also say I think something I don't think is talked about enough. The offensive line has got their ass kicked the last couple of games. People have bragged on them a lot. They were not good. Let's just call it. I know Georgia's really good, but Pitt dominated them, and even BC kind of got some rate. So that I know there's some mix and match, but he did not have help on the offensive line. He didn't have help on some drops, and at the end of the day, Haynes King, I think, is going to take a lot of the blunt. And I think that Brent said it to him one time, "Let's go own it, buddy." After the Louisville loss last year, he knows it, but. As frustrating as it is, Haynes King has done a lot, and he's elevated this program from, I was said in a social media post 4 years ago. I was sitting in Bobby Dodd Stadium when we're down 45-0 to Georgia, 90% crowd, and now we're toe for toe, physically matching him, just punch for punch, just couldn't come up with a break, and we're 9-3. If you would have told me that then, I would have never believed it. And Haynes King's going to leave a legacy that he elevated the program back to where I think it's going to be competitive for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, for sure. The offensive line and King, really the only person that could establish any sort of run throughout the game, and I feel like a lot of it was kind of happening late in that second half, was Haynes King. Another really, really poor day for Georgia Tech on the ground. Curious what y'all's thoughts on that. Do you think it was the offensive line? Do you think it was just Georgia getting all the push in the trenches? Or do you think that Buster might have just gone into the game knowing that, hey, Georgia's passing defense is probably where we need to attack these guys? What do y'all think happened there? Why was it such a slow day for the Jackets on the ground?
Well, I'm going to echo Brent Key. What running game, right? He said that in his presser. And the offensive line, you did lose, I think, 3 starters off the 2024 team. So you had some continuity back, but that's something they're going to have to try to explore. I think they lose both guards off this team, right? So they're going to have to get back to the physicality game. And what did Brent say after the Florida State game in Ireland? He said, run the ball. That's your bread and butter. And, Buster loves the lateral, the sling it around passing game to set up the shots downfield. And it was just the pressure came so quickly, and I think you had to kind of just abandon it at some point. King started to run a lot more in the second half, and you got those like kind of 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, like I mentioned earlier. But one tackle for loss kills it. The margin for error was too small, and the offensive line just couldn't rise to the occasion enough to get him in the end zone. And you're not beating Georgia without scoring a touchdown on offense. You're just not.
Yeah, 100%. Just to echo that, the offensive line, there's some. I thought that would be a strength in it, and it was a strength. I think at some points in the season, like pass protection's been good all year, but the run, like, and also I don't know, the running back is going to be interesting going in off season because Georgia Tech needs to have a running back that you can count on that is going to be 800 to 1,000 yard back, and they didn't have that this year. I know Malachi Holsey played well, and Jamal Haynes unfortunately had a little bit of a down year. I don't know if it's all on him, but the offensive line, they were young. Like you think Harrison Moore is really young. Tana, the center, he's a really young guy. And then I think Malachi Carney will be back at right tackle, and then Ethan McKinney is still a redshirt sophomore redshirt sophomore. So they'll be back, and I think that will be not a concern going into next season. But the running game needs to be better. And again, like Matt said, you're not going to beat Georgia not scoring a touchdown. And that's where we were talking about earlier, the aggressiveness that Brent or Buster, they didn't ever dial up. It just seemed like there was something that you could have done, like an onside kick coming out of the second half. And anything like that would have been nice to turn the momentum because the defense was playing so well. And, I mean, give them a short field. That you have to do that. And it would have been nice to see something like that. But, the rushing attack was really, really poor. And the offense in general just wasn't good. And you have to give credit to Georgia. They're a really good defense. They're playing really well defensively. And, you have to give credit to Tech's defense. They played a great game. Like, they played a hell of a game. Like, you look at how well they played. Like, the EJ Lightsey played unbelievable. I mean, if they would have played like that a couple weeks ago, then we'd be talking about Charlotte right now. So,
For sure. Yeah, a few guys that you brought up there that we definitely want to touch on. Malachi Hosley, only 3 carries against Georgia after only having 1 against Pittsburgh. You got to think he might have gotten a little dinged up.
Yeah, he has to be banged up or something.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I mean, we all wanted Jamal to have his moment. It unfortunately didn't happen, and it just doesn't seem like Georgia was the game it was going to happen, despite what you guys have said. I think, Matt, you were the first person I saw say it online, just a vanilla game plan for Georgia Tech going into it. And we're going to talk about Buster and just kind of the season that he had this year and, what maybe to expect from him going forward. But, yeah, interesting on Malachi. Hopefully he gets better in time for the bowl game if he is, in fact, banged up. But let's do talk about some positive things from the game. And like Patrick was getting to, the defense. And EJ Lightsey in particular, linebackers were a huge point of concern for every single game throughout this year. And EJ Lightsey goes into this game and has 12 tackles, 6 of them by himself. He was flying around, felt like he was involved on almost every play. What did you guys see from EJ and the linebackers, and just any guys that stood out to you guys on that side of the ball?
Matt, I'll let you hit up this one first, and then I'll go after that.
Lightsey played phenomenal. I mean, both the linebacking, the entire core played fast, played physical, got downhill, like Brent said. You had people just fundamentally playing better defense, right? Setting the edge, guys dropping into coverage better. You had, was it Tajay Butler on the interception, just right where he needed to be in the zone with the zone drop. So, you think that it took to game 12, but the fundamentals showed up in the last 6 quarters. I mean, there's no doubt that's the best 6 quarters of football Georgia Tech's played in a long time defensively. And, big picture for a second, you've had 3 defensive coordinators in 3 years. You need to find a way for Blake Gideon to save his job because you need some continuity on that side of the ball. And it was trending the first few weeks in November like they may have to make a move here if he can't shore this up, right? Just from a fan mutiny perspective. But I certainly think he saved his job to come back next year. I think you probably need to make some moves underneath him and the staff, maybe get some more veteran voices on that side of the ball, either on the field or from an analyst, off-field perspective. But another guy I want to kind of sing his praises, Phoenix Felton came in when Clayton Powell went out with injury. And I don't think he's got any burn game action at all this year prior to Friday.
1 game.
He looked fantastic. I mean, he instantly made an impact flying around in the secondary. So you had guys who have either not been on the field at all or have been struggling for a month who really showed up on Friday and gave the team a chance.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Blake Gideon, I think he did save his job. And again, when he was talking about three different defensive coordinators in 3 years, and again, let's be honest, this is a problem Georgia Tech's had outside of John Tenuta pretty much since for like the last 30 years. The defense, it's tough to recruit defensive linemen. So at the end of the day, what are you going to do? Change again and like make these guys go through another staff? It's better for Blake Gideon to be able to get it right, and then, but like Matt said, maybe get some staff changes underneath and get a veteran voice, like an older coach that's been a defensive coordinator to play caller, so he can run things off of and have that person in the room, which they don't have on the defensive side of the ball right now. But the defense played so great. I mean, Phoenix Felton, who I'm not even going to lie, I didn't even really know who he was that much. I followed Georgia Tech incredibly closely. The linebacking core was great. And, the pass, the secondary, it just looked way different. Like, they played aggressive. They played loose. It didn't look like people knew where to go, and it seemed like simplified. I always feel like when Georgia Tech does that, at the end of when Georgia Tech simplifies the defense, you look at the good years, and the defense plays loose. You don't overcomplicate it, because at the end of the day, they're not having Alabama guys on the defensive line ever. So, but let them play loose, and they did. And unfortunately, I feel like if they would have done that about a month ago, then you're probably 11-1.
Yeah, you hear the word trust going around a lot when you talk to guys on defense. Everybody's got to trust the guys around them to do their job, and if they do that, then oftentimes it becomes a more cohesive unit, and a unit like we saw, like Matt said, for the last 6 quarters. It just felt like there was a lot more trust from everybody on the defensive side of the ball for the last game and game and a half, as you guys mentioned. Yeah, just held Georgia to 260 yards offensively, and Gunnar Stockton pretty much eliminated him from the game. 70 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and you really can give a lot of credit to Zachariah Branch for that touchdown, making a man miss and getting in there. Heck of an athlete that guy is. He's tough for anybody to cover. But again, a fantastic game for the defense. Omar Daniels also had a great game with 10 tackles himself. Really pleased with Phoenix and Felton myself as well. But yeah, anything to wrap on the Georgia topic before we move on from there?
It's coming. A win is coming.
Yeah, they can't beat us forever. I'll say that. They can't beat us forever. And look, Georgia fans, they know how close this game has gotten. It's going to be like that for the foreseeable future. Georgia Tech plays them incredibly tough. They will get over the hump. I know, and when it happens, we're all going to enjoy it.
Yeah, no matter how much I get flamed for saying it, they're 2 plays away. Whether you like it or not, they're 2 plays away from potentially being 2-2 under Brent Key. But let's talk about Brent Key. His 3rd year as the full-time head coach for Georgia Tech. Let's just do it. I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. We're going to grade Brent Key's 3rd year as a head coach. Obviously, a 9-3 season. And let's talk about that season a little bit. Let's really get into detail before we start throwing some letters out there. An interesting game against Colorado. You kind of have to throw, as much as I hate to say it, because I think that sometimes teams get away with week 1 losses, but week 1 is always just a weird week. So a weird game at Colorado that I'll give Tech a pass for that one being close. We obviously saw what happened in Colorado as the season went on, but I'll give them a pass for keeping that one close. Same thing against Clemson. You don't really know what Clemson was by the time you played them, but you get the best of them at home on a last-second field goal. Those, in hindsight, don't look like amazing wins. But maybe a little bit better now after seeing Clemson absolutely smoke South Carolina this past weekend. Another few that were a little too close. Obviously, Boston College was a game that everybody was scratching their head at. And then just a couple bad losses too. I mean, let's face it. NC State is a bad loss no matter how many teams they've upset at home in the last few years, no matter how difficult environment that is to play in. It's not a great football team, and if you want to be a playoff team, it's not a team you can lose to. And then obviously Pitt, it's the biggest game you've had in a long, long time. You control your destiny at that point, and you lay an egg, go down 28-0 at home. So all of those things being said, what are you guys' thoughts on Brent Key's 3rd season as the head coach for Georgia Tech?
So I would say, look, I guess a grade, you have to say B+ or A-. Look, he's 9-3. He was very damn close to making the playoffs. There's so many positives. However, there's some things that you're just like, what is going on? Like the Pitt game, I think that's probably one of the most painful losses. I think that I've been to Bobby Dodd Stadium. for missed maybe 2 or 3 home games in the last 30 years or 25 years. That was an electric atmosphere, and you had an opportunity there, and it's just Tech doesn't get opportunities like that at home, and they did lay an egg. But I'll say overall, Brent has done a great job. He's really brought this entire program back to where he's got the fan base back. Like, let's face it, Georgia Tech lost 12,000 season ticket holders under the previous regime. He got most of that back. They almost averaged 50,000 people a game. So that's huge. And guess what? Next year, with Tennessee and Colorado at home, the fan base is going to continually be energetic. Brent's done a really good job. I think that there's a couple of decisions I think he needs to be more aggressive in, especially like some opportunities. I think he is a little bit conservative sometimes. But overall, you have to give Brent credit for what he's done to this program and how much he cares about it. And look, next year, Georgia Tech, I will say that as much as we talk about Haynes King, there's a guy coming behind him that's got a chance to be very special. He's one of the best high school quarterbacks ever in the state of Georgia. And we have a lot of guys coming. Like, if you keep Buster another year, which I think if I had to guess, I think that they will, in my opinion, based on some things I've heard. But yeah, Brent's done a great job, and like you can't be mad at Brent. He's got this program on the right track, and I think Georgia Tech is in a great spot right now. And as frustrating as the last couple of weeks have been, you got to know that Brent's excited to go forward next year, and I think that we're really close.
Patrick, I agree with that. I think the way November transpired kicks you out of the A grade. You were the highest ranked team in the country, not in the SEC or the Big Ten, and now you missed both the playoff and the ACC championship. But you can't go 9-3 at Georgia Tech and not get at least a B. It was a solid season. It was a huge building block in so many different areas of the program. And key, I think, is learning. He's incrementally in just so many areas, right? Situational football, down and distance, clock management, timeout management. You go back to his interim year in 22 and some situations in 23. There were some pretty rough, what the heck was that moments. And he's kind of surrounding himself with a lot of people that help him. He knows his strengths, and he knows his weaknesses. And I think with coaches at this level, like, that's hard for them to admit ego-wise where they're deficient, right? And so I think he's doing a great job on that front. And I think the word we use, the buzzword in collegiate athletics right now, is alignment, right? Institutional alignment.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what he's got to fight for. Cabrera and Ryan Alpert and Key at all three levels, you've probably got the right institutional alignment at Georgia Tech for the first time since Homer Ice in like the mid-90s. So he's going to fight incrementally, I think, in all the areas of the program to keep leveling up. He said it in his presser the other day. I think Kelly Quinlan asked him, how do you level this up? He said, we got to keep recruiting, got to keep coaching. He's just going to incrementally level up in every area. And I think, like you said, Patrick, Georgia Tech's in good hands for a long time. You may not get the schedule to line up on a silver platter for you like this season did, and that's going to sting. But Georgia Tech's going to have opportunities to play for ACC championships if you just keep making these incremental steps in the program like Brent's trying to do.
100%. Yeah, that's a great point. I think I was thinking kind of the same ballpark, A-, B+. Matt, you might have convinced me that after November, maybe not worthy of anything that starts with an A. So overall, a good season for Brent Key. 27-19 now, his overall record at Georgia Tech. That does include his 4-4 interim period as well. 20-11 in conference play. I think that's really solid. And as Matt said, if you continue doing that, you're going to get opportunities to play in the ACC championship. What more could you really ask for as a Georgia Tech fan? I think everybody, except for maybe some trolls online, we're all in alignment here that it's time to see an extension happen. What are y'all's thoughts on that? My take, I think we've all been asked online, and my take has been they're going to focus on finishing the year out strong, and then maybe we'll see something announced early in the postseason. Obviously, nothing's happened yet, but you've also not seen him get hired at Auburn. You've also not seen him get hired at Florida. LSU got their guy, as I'm sure we've all seen today. Arkansas job. Arkansas job is gone. There's really just no other job, I guess, barring maybe Penn State, that you could see him being a candidate for. What are y'all's thoughts on the extension? Do you think it's going to happen soon? Just talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's in the works. He definitely deserves an extension. I think that the thing is with Georgia Tech, like, I don't foresee like Brent going in disaster and having like a huge buyout, but like these contracts aren't sustainable that college coaches are getting right now. Like you can't keep like teams paying $50 or $60 million to fire a coach. I mean, Georgia Tech, the Paul Hewitt contract debacle back in the day, Jeff Collins debacle recently. Like, and guess what? Like Jeff Collins was only, I don't know what his buyout was. It wasn't even that much, but Georgia Tech is not ready for that. So I think that they have to have like a good, like he's going to make money. He needs to make up $8-9 million a year. That's what you have to pay the coaches, but also make sure that you're not, setting yourself up for failure on that. And I think that Brent deserves an extension. He's going to do that. And Matt said a great point earlier. Like Brent knows his weaknesses, and I think that bodes really well for him going down the line because he's gonna make it work. Like he does not think that he's like a all knowing or anything like that. I think he knows what he's good at. He knows how to make like fire people up, play like tough football and everything. And he knows that sometimes like he's gonna go get people around and he's gonna hire a great staff. I think that as well. And I think somebody said he'd fire his own mom if he could, if it meant that they were going to win more football games. So he's done that. So the extension's coming. It's well deserved. In the institutional alignment, I mean, what we're paying defensive coordinators and like I remember like Paul Johnson could not get a defensive coordinator. They end up having to go like get Al Groh whenever I don't know who they wanted, but it was a disaster because they couldn't get money to hire a good coordinator. Now they're paying, Buster Faulkner's a top 10 paid OC in the country. Blake Gideon's making 7 figures. So Brent's got a well-deserved extension, and I'm excited going forward with him. I think that he's not going to go anywhere, unless something drastic changes.
I'm glad you brought up Paul Johnson because he gave a quote, probably 2016 or 2017. He said that he had about 8 or 9 off the field guys, personnel, helping him, whereas Clemson at the time had between 50 and 55. So on the topic of the extension, I think you're seeing Brent know who he is as a CEO coach, trying to get everything in place around him, and get the ducks in a row, behind the scenes. He's obviously going to get a pay raise, a bump, and he deserves it. But he's trying to get money for his analyst people. He's trying to get money for his coordinators, nutrition staff, training staff. He knows what he needs at each level. And so that's probably, I think, why the delay in the extension announcements going on. He's probably just trying to get everything lined up. I think you'll see it really soon. And he deserves every bit of it. He's going to get it. And, like that Paul Hewitt contract, like some of these contracts are getting outrageous where the schools are just trying to keep the guy in place and not protect themselves on the back end. But I don't think you're going to have to worry about that with Brent Key. I think you'll see this happen in the next couple weeks.
Sure. Yeah, I'll let you guys take a swing at it, unless you don't want to, because I personally am not going to take a guess at what a good extension would look like. But what is y'all's opinion on that as far as the period goes and the money per year? What would that look like for you guys? Something that would be fair for both parties.
You might make a little bit more than me after this extension. I'm not just kidding. I would say you're probably going to see him up $7.5 to $8 million range a year, and I'm not sure how long that's going to be, but that's what I would guess. And that's well deserved. That's what you have to do. I mean, when we hired him, he was making like 2.8 or $2.5 million bucks. So I would say it's somewhere around that. And I'm not sure exactly. Like, I think that's probably what they're negotiating right now. Like all the different logistics of, hey, like the buyout, all this. And he also wants to make sure, I'm sure he also wants to make sure he has the support, like, having it like an analyst like Brian Bohannon on the staff, like a guy that's been like a head coach. Like, I think he's going to make sure that, hey, with all this, I want to make sure, like, because he wants to win at Tech. He wants to win championships at Tech, and he's hell-bent on doing it. And I think that he's just trying to make sure the alignment's there, and he's like, look, we can do this. But so I think that's probably, like, I think the salary and the length of the contract is probably already done. I think it's more like, hey, like, let's make sure that we have this money pot set away so we can win at a high level.
Yeah, roster cash is a term that's thrown around a lot too. It's not as simple as it used to be, guys, where you could just give a coach a salary and that would be it. Now we're talking about, okay, I'm going to make this much. How much are my players going to make? How much is the school willing to invest in the program in that regard? It's just such a different beast these days, and I think maybe that might be why things take a little bit longer. Obviously, you saw it with the whole Kiffin debacle that's finally settled now. I think that was in the range of like $25 million annual roster cash. Are we going to put a salary cap on this one of these days? I mean, this is insane.
It is. Georgia Tech's not swimming those waters just yet, but Patrick, I was thinking like the $7, $8, $9 million range. I think you want to lock him up at least till the end of the decade. You know, kind of the rumor mill says everything may blow up around 2030. I think the ACC schedule, as it stands, it was like a 7-year format, right, from like 2024 to 2030. So you at least want him locked up until everything might blow up again. And yeah, you're right. Just the amount of money being thrown out is crazy, but it's budget, and he's going to get the best he can, and he's going to go to work with it.
100%. Another person the Georgia Tech fans are going to want to see locked up as we get through this postseason is Buster Faulkner. Obviously, again, not the best game of his tenure against Georgia, and maybe not his best half in the first half against Pitt either, but still someone that you want to keep around. And it's someone that a lot of people are excited to see what he can do with a lot of guys who will be returning next year at Georgia Tech. Nothing going on there yet. I've heard rumors of potentially Auburn trying to go after him now with Golesh. Patrick, you seem like you might have had some insight there. Not asking you to fully disclose what you might know, but Buster Faulkner, again, obviously a guy people want extended. What do you guys think will happen there?
In my opinion, I've heard some things. I think that Buster would leave for like a right head coaching job. I don't know if he would go to Auburn. I don't know if that makes sense. Like his family's happy here. He's doing well. And then I think also he recruited Aaron Philo. That was his handpicked quarterback to run his offense. The Haynes King offense that we've run the last couple of years is not actually what Buster would do, actually. So I think that he has that opportunity as well. And Tech is good job to the administration. They're paying him really well. He likes it. I don't think he's from Atlanta. He went to Parkview High School. Like, so I don't think that he's gonna like just go leave and go to like Florida or Auburn. That'd be, a thought I had. Like, I think a high level group of 5 job. Like, I would not be shocked like if like USF went after him or something. And I think that would be like something that he wouldn't be able to turn down because that's a high level group of 5 job. But if I had to guess, I'd say Buster probably comes back next year. Again, he didn't have his best 2 games last, but he's been a great hire. He's a good adapting offensive coordinator, and I think that him having Aaron Philo, his handpicked guy next year, would be a lot of fun to watch that offense with him and really see what they can draw up, because it'll be a completely different offense, and not a bad way, just like they're different quarterbacks. And so I'm excited. I think that he'll be at Tech next year, barring, like I said, like a job going like USF or something.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I think they're going to take care of him financially. That's going to be a top priority, obviously. I don't expect to see him back. Like you said, the offense is in great hands with Aaron Philo. He fits to a T what Buster likes to do, sling it around, passing game, setting up the deep shots. And as great as Haynes King was, there needs a lot of deep shots this year. That could have changed some games. Philo's got great touch on the ball. He's obviously not going to have as many design runs as King, but you saw in the NC State game last year and the Miami game last year, I mean, as a true freshman, he carried the team to some wins, right? Some huge wins. And, I think a couple of things you're going to want to look at. You talk about the middle 8, right? The middle 8 of games, which you think would Brent would kind of be his bread and butter to end the half and start the next half. I think a lot of it honestly came down to coin tosses. You can't win the doggone coin toss.
Amen.
That's unbelievable.
You're always kicking off to start the second half. And, they're going to have to try to find a way schematically, strategically to be better at that, because that's such a big deal. And if you get outscored 10-0 or 14-0 in that middle 8, it just completely changes the ball game. And he's going to have to kind of self-scout the red zone. Now, there are definitely some drops. I think I counted maybe 6 or 7 touchdown drops, either from within the red zone in close or from a couple downfield passes against NC State that could have been caught from outside the red zone. But and look, Aiden Burr, 24 of 27, right? He earned every bit of the Luke Rosa Award finalist that he got, and really Burr is probably a big difference in why you're 9-3 and not 7-5 again. But you're gonna have to try to find a way to get to ramp up the physicality, to maybe not get quite so cute. I think that's been some of the criticism. But when you're having trouble punching it in, you got to try stuff, right? So I think those are a couple of things you're going to really want to look at. But get Hosley back to complement him. Replenish the tight end room. I think you lose 3 of the 4 top tight ends. just keep some of the skill guys, Bailey Stockton, Isaiah Canyon. Like the wide receiver room is going to be in great hands. You're in great hands at quarterback, and I think it should be another really, really great offense if you can hang on to all the principles that you've got as of now slated to come back.
So interesting. I mean, so many things going through my mind just hearing you guys talk about this, especially with Philo and stuff like that. I mean, I think Haynes King and Brent Key so far, as far as Georgia Tech is concerned, they're just synonymous. And when you think of Brent Key, you think of Haynes King. When you think of Haynes King, you think of Brent Key. And it's going to be really interesting to see, as the chips unfold throughout this offseason, what things are going to look like as we go into the next year. One thing that I'm going to bring up, and I don't want to be the negative Nelly or the stick in the mud, but I think, God forbid, somebody's got to do it. I think, God forbid, if Faulkner were to find his way into another job somewhere, are you concerned about him taking Philo with him? I mean, this is a thing that happens in college football a lot these days. Heck, Lane Kiffin was threatening these folks, saying, "You get on the plane with me right now, or you ain't coming." So clearly, it's a thought that these guys have when they're leaving schools. Do you think that Philo would be interested in following Faulkner somewhere if he were to take another job?
Depending, like if he went to as an OC somewhere, but I feel like if he went to USF or something, let's be honest, like USF is not going to be able to, he wouldn't go to USF. I also feel like that Tech did take care of him this year, like in terms of NIL wise, as a backup quarterback really well. And his family's from here. I mean, I could see that maybe happening, but I think that if Buster went to like Auburn or something, that there'd be a chance. God, but I don't think so. I think that I would say that Philo will probably end up staying, and he probably has a close relationship with Key and then Winky. I mean, the offensive staff has been really, really good. And I don't know, this is kind of way off topic. I want to say something about Aiden Burr really quick because I feel like we have not. I know that Georgia Tech fans hold Harrison Butker and Lord as they should, but Aiden Burr, he hasn't made a kick against Georgia, but he is actually statistically probably going to be the best kicker in Georgia Tech history. If he comes back next year, he's going to break every record, and he's probably been a little bit more clutch than even like Butker was. I hate to say it, like I'm not trying to trash him. Like obviously Butker was great and had his moments, but I'm just saying like Aiden Burr has been phenomenal. Like I know last year he had a little bit of a slump, but he has been really, really good for Georgia Tech, and I think that he's probably going to leave the best kicker in school history. Sorry,
yeah, something I love about.
Tangent.
Oh, you're good. Something I love about Aiden Burr, especially in that Georgia game, all his kicks were just right down the middle. He wasn't. I mean, the Clemson one was a little bit scary, but the rest of them, he leaves no doubt. Those things are always going in. Yeah, just something to keep in mind and something to keep track of as we get into the offseason here. Matt, anything on that before we move on to our next topics?
Yeah, on Burr, I would just say, from watching the Paul Johnson years, you can't take touchbacks for granted. How many games in that era were changed by not being able to kick the ball through the end zone for touchbacks? Burr's almost automatic at that. Yeah, I mean, the fire drill field goals, the one he kicked against Clemson is Georgia Tech's longest made field goal since 1986. And I think he joined a four-way tie for the longest kick in school history with that kick, too. The one against Wake Forest to get it to overtime, you can't forget that one. And, think about I don't want to call anyone out by name, but really the last 15 years, extra points weren't automatic. 30-yard field goals were 50-50, Forget 50-yard field goals. They went a decade since Harrison Butker between even making a 50-yard field goal. So it's just such a game changer to have a kicker like that you can count on. And on the final topic real quick, and the portal, he's a Georgia high school legend with the numbers he put up. I think him and Trevor Lawrence are kind of the top two in passing yards right or touchdowns, something like that. So I think it probably means something to him to stay in the state and play college in the state. And if Buster were to leave, things happen quickly in these coaching circles and these quick change searches. I think you just probably try to stay in-house, promote Chris Winkie, build on that ongoing relationship, and try to keep him in the fold. But unless something changes, I think you've got a great chance to hang on to a lot of these guys. And Brent's got everything budgeted for that. They had to pay both King and Philo. They paid Philo handsomely to stick around as a backup this year. So I see no reason why they wouldn't pay him handsomely to be the guy going forward.
For sure, yeah. Winky deserves a lot of credit for the development of Haynes King, and another great point for Matt there. I just think if you're fellow, you got to love what you saw from Haynes King over the last 3 years, and just how much better he continued to get. Got to be wondering, okay, this is going to be me next. I think everybody knows he's about to be handed the keys to this offense, so going to be really exciting to watch. And before we close the page on Burr, Tim Salem deserves a freaking bunch of credit, man. Inherited an absolute. I mean, I'm not even going to say what I want to say. Just inherited a terrible situation for Georgia Tech special teams. I mean, this was a unit that was literally losing you football games. As crazy as that is to say, and not just by missing field goals, but by having punts blocked, just being inept in every category that you could possibly imagine on special teams. Tim Salem has done an amazing job riding the ship there, and a staffer that definitely deserves a lot of credit, along with guys like Faulkner and Winky and stuff like that. One other person too that a lot of people haven't been talking about enough, in my opinion, AJ Artis. We were the healthiest we've ever been this year. I mean, as crazy as the coin tosses were, it was almost equally as crazy to have as healthy of a roster as we did at this point in the season, late in the year. Any comments on him or just any other staffers you guys want to give credit to?
Tim Salem's a great point. I think that was a great hire to have for Brent, to have like a veteran presence like that a guy that's kind of been there, done that, and have him run special teams. Because like you said, Georgia Tech has lost. I've seen them lose so many games due to special teams, just special teams disasters. And Jeff Collins, obvious disaster on special teams. I mean, that's a given. But even Brent, they had to get better on special teams. I think the only thing was kickoff return this year was not good. They need to get better on that, and they probably will. I'm sure that's fine, but the field goal, the punting was good. So the staff's staying healthy was great. And honestly, they didn't even have to bench press anything on the sideline. They stayed healthy. It's wild. But I think that, the great credit to AJ Artis, great credit to Tim Salem. I think that those guys are well deserved to get a little bit of a bump in salary and hopefully stay around, because I think the staff is put together really well right now. I think there's going to be changes. It's coaching, it's college coaching. People are going to and people are going to go play. It's just how the nature of the game. But I think that the nucleus will hopefully stay together. And I think that got to give Tim Salem a lot of credit on that.
Yeah, that's a great point about Salem and the special teams. That's a great point about Artis too. I think it just speaks to the attention to detail that's now being poured into the program. And Artis, I'm sure, has a great team. The medical team, nutrition. They're looking at soft tissue injuries, right? They're probably looking at how can we just mealtime, snack time, what we put in our bodies. And, that's the focus. Whereas in the past, the focus has been, let's get these dudes on Instagram flexing. Yeah, it's not about that anymore. Brent Key, how many times has Brent Key said, we're going to do everything it takes to win in this program? There's no moral victories. Winning is all that matters. And they're taking those attention to detail steps, I think, is what that speaks to more than anything.
For sure. Yeah, what a difference in culture that we've seen over the last 3 years. It's a beautiful thing. It's unfortunate that the season ended the way that it did, but overall a great year for the Jackets. We'll do a lot more kind of recap on the season, might do some superlatives and stuff like that as we get into the offseason. But Georgia Tech unable to make the ACC championship, but you've seen a lot of uproar on Twitter for the last 24 hours because Duke, who is 7-5, has somehow found their way to Charlotte this year, guys. I don't want to spend too much time on the ACC championship. I don't think many people are really wanting to hear too much about it, but just what are y'all's thoughts on Virginia and Duke, that matchup, and the ACC's implications for the playoffs in that game?
Well, I'm not a conference person. I don't care about I don't root for the ACC that much. I want some teams to lose a lot. I think I saw Matt one point on Twitter. He was talking about Dabo and Clemson. He's like, why would I root for them? They kicked the shit out of us for the last 10 years. I want him to get amnesia in the desert. And I was like, that was a great point. That's so I don't think like that. So I don't have that. But also, I won't spend much time on it because it kind of makes me mad because but Duke's going to win. I almost feel like it's hard to beat a team twice. I would almost, look, guys, Duke is going to win that game. They're going to go 8-5, and you got to hope maybe Miami gets in that large bid, but that's what I think is going to happen. And that'll be interesting. I'm sure it's going to be a packed house there with a bunch of Duke and Virginia fans there. So can't wait to watch it.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It almost feels like the ACC got what it deserved this year. But Duke.
Yeah.
What I'll say about Duke is they've they're a 5-loss team, but they've shot themselves in the foot a lot. Illinois, they gave the Illinois game away. They had 2 trips inside the Georgia Tech 1-yard line in that game, and it turned into a touchdown, 99-yard touchdown for Tech, and a field goal on a false start. So, Duke could have really, frankly, been ahead 17-0 in that game instead of tied 7-7 at half. If they can clean up the mistakes, Virginia did dismantle them a couple of weeks ago. I think that adds an extra wrinkle here, how Duke maybe changes their game plan. I wasn't able to watch that game, but I kind of feel like a Duke victory is coming too. On Virginia, I would just say, what a job by Tony Elliott. He came into the year coaching for his job, and he goes, 10-2? Probably a shoe in for ACC Coach of the Year with how November unfolded.
Yeah.
So, honestly, should be a good game.
Yeah, I think so too. I pray that Duke doesn't win, just for the ACC's playoff implications. I don't want to say how much of an ACC homer myself, but I've always said somebody's got to be a voice for the little people, and I try to do that as much as I can. So, I hope for the ACC's sake that the better team, at least who has been the better team for most of the year, wins that one, and Virginia is able to sneak into the playoffs. So maybe even Miami gets in at large as well. But definitely going to be a little bit of a snoozer, I think, in Charlotte that day. Maybe not on the scoreboard, but as Patrick mentioned, probably won't be very, very many people at that game. And just not the matchup that many people were hoping for. And speaking of matchups that fans aren't hoping for, there was a tweet that went out today. I'm trying to remember who it was from. Sorry for not giving credit at this moment, but a tweet that went out today had Georgia Tech playing Minnesota in the Pinstripe Bowl. I might sleep through that game. Y'all's thoughts on that before we get into the other bowl projections?
Yeah, that would not be great. I'm sure it'd be. Gosh, I don't know, the way that Georgia Tech's bowl selection has gone historically. I wouldn't be shocked by it. I've seen, you just know that they usually, they've gone to some bowl games that that you didn't even think were an option, and Georgia Tech will get into it. So it probably will happen now that we've talked about it. But I would like to go the Gator Bowl or the Pop-Tart Bowl, even the Holiday Bowl. I just don't go up some freezing cold and have to play a middling Big Ten team that probably will. That's probably I would not want to watch that game. I wouldn't want to play in that game. So let's hope we get to the Gator Pop-Tart Bowl, play an SEC team, get to 10 wins. But God, that'd be a disaster.
Yeah, well, I tweeted, destination aside from it, I tweeted the night of the NC State game that you really the only thing you don't want to do is win at home 9-3, right? And that's exactly what happened. But 10 wins does not happen often at Georgia Tech. 10 wins still means something. So Georgia Tech's been marooned at a lot of crazy bowl locations, but whether it's Fenway Park, Yankee Stadium, you'd love to get a Florida Bowl, but whatever happens, you really need to win this ball game. It's be a huge exclamation point. Number one, wipe the taste out of everyone's mouth of what just happened in November. And you put that stamp on it with 10 wins, something that happens once a decade around here lately. You get that 10th win, it'd be huge. On the destination, my guess, I'm a bit of a bowl tie-in and tier 1 and tier 2 of these conference bowl selections. Probably not going to know much until Sunday, I guess, because if one or both of Miami and Notre Dame miss, they fall down into the ACC hierarchy. So that's probably that would get Georgia Tech marooned somewhere up in the Northeast, is if Notre Dame and Miami both have to eat up ACC bowls. If one or both make the playoff, I would think Georgia Tech would be more attractive to the Gator or the Pop-Tart Bowl than the Pitt and SMU, maybe Virginia if they lose tier of teams. So I would hope, for once, Georgia Tech usually politically gets the short end of the stick, but you're not going up against Clemson in these selections. Most likely Virginia Tech's out, Florida State's out. Normally the ACC tries to not send the same team to the same bowl 2 years in a row. That's how we saw the flip a couple years ago. Remember Georgia Tech and Troy and the Birmingham and Duke, UCF and the Gasparilla. They flipped it at the last minute. So Miami, honestly, if they want the Pop-Tart Bowl and they're available, the ACC is probably going to acquiesce and let them go wherever they want to go. But it'd be awesome to see Georgia Tech play either an SEC team in the Gator Bowl or maybe someone like Houston or maybe BYU if they lose to Texas Tech in the Pop-Tart Bowl. So you have a chance for some really interesting matchups if Tech can get one of the Florida Bowls.
Yeah, that was CBS analyst Brad Crawford who had Georgia Tech playing Minnesota in the Pinstripes. So on the ESPN side, Kyle Bonagura had Georgia Tech playing Tennessee in the Gator Bowl. So a much more exciting matchup in a game that would be a preview for a matchup that's going to happen next year in Atlanta. So that would be a fun game for Georgia Tech fans. And then Mark Schlabach had Georgia Tech playing Houston in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. So those are your two Florida Bowls right there, and two, I would say more exciting opponents than Minnesota. We already watched Tech play Minnesota a few years back in the Quick Lane Bowl, and it did not go our way at all.
Most predictable outcome I've ever said in my life. That was it.
Yeah, and I honestly just it doesn't feel like a great matchup to me either. I don't want to talk about this game too much because it may not even happen, but I personally don't like that matchup for Georgia Tech. I would rather see us play and think we would have a better chance of winning against the likes of a Tennessee or a Houston. Y'all's thoughts on that just before we finish on the bowl games?
No, I mean that makes sense. Like I think that Georgia Tech they traveled great to Birmingham last year. I went to the Gasparilla Bowl in 2023. We brought a good crowd down there. So I think like the Gator Bowl would be a great destination. It's an easy drive, like playing like Missouri, Texas.
Yep.
Texas will probably be in the playoff. What are we kidding? But no, so anything like that. So that'd be great. And like I said, 10 wins is a big deal. Like that's because you end up finishing probably in the top 20, going into next year with a lot of momentum. And then if you lose, you don't want to go in on a 3-game losing streak of just that would be a disaster, unranked. And it's a big deal to finish the year ranked and with 10 wins at Georgia Tech. Like it hasn't happened recently, and it doesn't happen terribly often. So let's hope for a good bowl game, and hopefully Tech's fired up to play. I'm sure that most of their seniors are going to be excited to play. They've already all kind of been saying that on social media.
Agreed.
Well, the dreadful hour has arrived, guys, where we start talking about Georgia Tech basketball.
All right, I'm out. See you guys.
It was a fun, it was a fun football season, and as Matt brought up and as Patrick just stated there, 10 wins will be amazing. So hopefully they can make that happen, no matter where they end up. But there's a basketball team that is 5-3 that plays in Atlanta right now, and 5-3 doesn't sound that bad until you see that they just got smoked by DePaul and smoked by Drake back-to-back days. A rough stretch for Georgia Tech at that Emerald Coast thing, showdown, whatever that's going on, and a rough showing for Damon Stoudemire. Not what you wanted at all. I think you look at those two games and think, all right, we'll probably bring both of those home before we play Mississippi State and McCamish, but that's obviously not what happened. Some guys having their moments individually, but overall just a poor team effort from Georgia Tech in those two. What did you guys see from the Jackets in those two games?
Not gonna lie, on Friday I was very upset. I find out the basketball score till the next morning. However, watching that team, they turn the ball over too much. They have horrible guard play, which I was worried about going into this season. And you're 5-3. You lost to DePaul, DePaul's not good. Like they're very bad. Like they're like the worst. They're like Boston College, the ACC. I think Matt even said that on Twitter. They're not good. And you're 5-3 right now. And let's be honest, I don't have confidence they're going to beat Mississippi State. So, and Damon Stoudemire is at a loss. I don't know what's going to happen after this year. I don't know what the investment's like for Georgia Tech basketball right now. It's clearly not a lot because you think you would have kept Nate George. This season could go sideways really quickly if they end up losing to Mississippi State because you can't go like 5 or like 6-7 or 7-6 or whatever in non-conference play. And look, they're Brian Dongo and Mo Silla have shown promise, but there's no guard play. They turn the ball over too much, and it's kind of a disaster. Like there's no enjoyment. I don't even follow Tech basketball very much anymore. I used to love it. And it's hard to watch. It's been hard to watch, but this isn't a new issue. It's been going on since the end of the Hewitt era, and so it is what it is at this point. I think. What are we going to expect?
Yeah, I think the basketball program's got to answer the questions: what are we, and what do we want to be, and frankly, what can we be? Right on the floor, we know it's a bad free throw shooting team. Shout out to Jim Stewart at JB Stewart on Twitter, alerting me that Tech is 351st out of 365 in free throw shooting.
Good God!
And has only been in the top 100 of free throw shooting one time since 1997. So you have these. That's just one point as a microcosm of what kind of how long it's been since this program's been good. I mean, no recruit alive today was alive for the Final Four in 2004. The prestige has dropped, and I think alignment is coming, right? I mean, you still got the same president, same AD that are trying to help football, but whereas Brent is incrementally working up to probably a top 5 overall funding in the ACC, realistically, where's Damon? Is he in the top 15 of an 18-team league? I don't know the answer to that question. If he is in the top 15, it's probably not by much, right? Mm-hmm. So what does incremental progress mean for the basketball program right now? Does it mean, like last year, can we go 500 in conference and sneak into the NIT? And does Damon, I'm guessing just by what I've heard from Damon, he probably hates the NIL portal format that exists right now. Is he going to want to stick around and see this thing through another 2 or 3 more years? Is there going to be a mutual parting of ways and just shake hands and, well, it worked out all right. We're probably in a better place now than when Josh got fired. But I think you have to answer those kind of philosophical questions. What are we now? What can we be in this league? Can we be a top half team in this league, by the end of the decade? And I've heard Ryan Alpert's a basketball guy. He wants to resurrect the thing. But what does that look like? I think that's really the first big question they're going to have to answer.
Yeah, and I add one thing really quick. I mean, you made a great point. What does Georgia Tech want to be in basketball? Because let's be honest, the history, there is some great history there, but it hasn't been there right now. And there's not. What happens if you end up getting rid of Damon? If you get rid of Damon, then you better have a damn good plan to know, and make a commit that, hey, we want to be in NCAA tournament every year. But you can't fire him and then go pay. Damon's making a little over $2 million a year. That's not. I'm not saying obviously that's in normal people that's a lot of money, but look at some of the other coaches what basketball coaches are making. People are investing. Georgia has invested now in basketball. It's not, and Georgia Tech is not. It doesn't seem like they are. And it's frustrating. It's not. It's been horrible to watch the last 15, 20 years. But if you're not going to make a commitment, then I don't see the point of going through another coach and going out and not being able to hire a coach, because Georgia Tech is not a great job right now. It's not a fantastic basketball job right now. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I hope maybe they can figure it out. Maybe one of those young guards learns how to, develops, and then, Mo Silla and Bayandongo, I think, is a good front court, but we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, Georgia Tech basketball has to decide what they want to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. In an era where dollars are just more important than they have ever been in college sports in general, it just feels like maybe one has to be sacrificed. And I think that everybody would rather have the football team be as successful as they have been, and the basketball team, kind of look like they have, if that's what it takes. But, you both made some great points, just because we all know Georgia Tech historically, at least in recent history, in regards to money, has been in the bottom half of the ACC in a lot of these things. It seems like that's trending towards a better direction for some things. Do we know if it is for others? I guess that verdict is still out, but it's overall, it's going to be an interesting thing to see what can happen. Again, a huge game against Mississippi State for Damon Stoudemire and Georgia Tech this Wednesday at McCamish. Those tickets are as low as $9 right now, guys. If you ain't been out to a game, it might be time to make your way to McCamish Pavilion. I probably will try my best to get to that one. It will be my first this year. But any closing remarks, guys? We've eclipsed an hour, the longest we've ever had. On Jolly Good Fellows. Round of applause for Matt and for Patrick for getting us over an hour. This is amazing. But any closing remarks just before we sign off?
No, it's been great. I like talking. There's a lot of positives of building a football. We haven't even touched on baseball or anything like that. But look, it is what it is. We're Georgia. We're in this for the long haul. If unfortunately, for better for worse. But I think there's a lot of positive looking forward for the Georgia Tech football program, the fan base. It's not all lost. It's been a bad little month, but look, let's go win 10 games, come back next year. Amazing home schedule. It's going to be a lot of fun, and let's go see maybe if our basketball team can get us through to, which I think is going to be a really good baseball season.
I'm glad you said that, Patrick, about baseball. I can think of 3 quick closing points to make. Number one, you alluded to the Mississippi State game. Part of the problem with basketball, right, is so many seasons, just about, let's face it, every season has been realistically over before Christmas for the last 15 years. You're looking at, well, the tournament's gone. Can we sneak into the NIT? Or, oh, how many bye games are we going to lose this year? We've already lost to who,
Actually, we
So,
haven't lost a bye game yet because that was a tournament. I'm
well,
sure we're due for that one.
I looked it up at one point. I think this is probably the first year they haven't lost a bye game since maybe the Derek Favors year.
Fortunately, there's still a lot of way too many of them left. So,
So, I mean, it's a bad sign when you're sneaking overtime win out over Maryland Eastern Shore and Georgia beats them by 64 points or something 2 days later. So
yeah, that was not good.
I think just if Georgia Tech could just start one season like 7-0, 8-0, just get to Christmas with some meat on the bone and create some excitement, that would probably go a long way, right? The second thing I would say on the topic of the ACC, these conferences are so large now. Let's call it what it is. It's a penis measuring contest with these conferences and conference administrators. You can't adequately determine a conference champion anymore. You have teams that play maybe one or two common opponents. That's how we get into these crazy tiebreaker situations. I think Oklahoma and Texas had 0 common opponents within the SEC this year. Duke was the only team of the top kind of 6 in the mix in the ACC that did not have a win over any of the other teams in the mix, but because of the aggregate conference record tiebreaker, they're in. So it creates so much wackiness. Yet Georgia has still never gone to Texas A&M is another example, and A&M joined the league in 2012. They don't go to College Station until 2027. That's ridiculous. What is this? What are we doing in this sport with schedules like that, right? And then the last thing I would say, because I'm going to be true to my stick in the mud nature right here at the close, is I actually for once believe in the baseball team. Danny Hall is, God bless him, did a lot of good things, but he's retired. So I don't officially predict the baseball team is going to be gone at 6:30 p.m. on the first Sunday in June now. I think they've got a great shot to have a great year. And I think this needs to be here. Let's go ahead and break. Omaha's one thing. If you can get to Omaha, great. But let's go ahead and break that super regional drought that's going to reach 20 years if it doesn't happen.
Bush administration. George Bush was president last time we got out of the regional, which is insane. I do think they are going to be historically good this year, but besides.
You guys will have to forgive me as we get into baseball season because I've got a lot of learning to do as far as that sport goes. Never been a baseball guy, but promised Patrick for the show that I would get into it this year. And I know that it seems to just be kind of the stereotypical Georgia Tech athletic sport where, you build up some hopes to start the year and you're crushed by the end of it. So excited to add another heartbreaker to my resume as a Georgia Tech fan, but hopefully not. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of optimism, more than usual, even though there usually is a lot for Georgia Tech baseball this season. So we'll definitely have Matt back on to talk about that as we get closer to that. And I know Patrick is going to really, really have a lot to say in regards to Georgia Tech baseball. So much to look forward to and a lot to build on after what was a good season for Georgia Tech. Nothing to hang your head about if you're a Georgia Tech fan. It's going to be an exciting offseason, a lot of things that we want to see happen, a lot of extensions, a lot of money that needs to be spent. And we'll be right here every step of the way on Jolly Good Fellows, guys. For Patrick May and Matt Thompson, this is Jared Hallis signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one.